Mishpacha, it's Courtney, America's Jewish mother. Welcome back to my channel, and I'm here today with a book haul, which I haven't done in a very long time. I think the last book haul I did was in May of 2021, I think. So I have 10 books to show you, so let's go. So the first two books I actually bought at the tail end of 2021, so I bought these in the last week or so of 2021, so they don't count toward my total for this year because I had said in my goals video that I only want to buy 30 books this year because I bought over 50 I think last year, and it's just too hard to reduce your physical TBR when you're bringing in that many books. So I've limited myself to 30, but the first two don't count because I did buy them in 2021. So, and I got these at a used bookstore in Rocky Mount where my parents live. So the first one is The Talmud, a biography by Harry Friedman. So this is basically about the Talmud, which is a Jewish religious text where a bunch of rabbis basically discuss various rules and minutiae in the Torah. The first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So basically this is a history of the Talmud, more or less. So it says that Friedman tells the engrossing story of an ancient classic, the legal and mystical pillar of Judaism, and recounts the story of a book which in many ways parallels the history of the Jewish people. So I'm glad to have this. It's on the shorter side. It's only, 200-ish pages. Yeah, slightly over 200 pages. So I hope this will be an interesting read that I learned something new from. The second book I got, also at the used bookstore in Rocky Mount, is called The Religion of Democracy, Seven Liberals and the American Moral Tradition by Amy Kittelstrom. And I basically was interested in this because flipping through it, I saw that it has a chapter about Jane Addams, so that definitely intrigued me. It's also blurbed on the front by Jill Lepore, by the way. So in this book, Kittelstrom discusses, John Adams, Mary Moody Emerson, who I'm going to assume is related to Ralph Waldo Emerson, but I don't know that for sure. William Ellery Channing, William James, who you know I also love, Thomas Davidson, William McIntyre Salter, and Jane Addams. So it says, today we associate liberal thought and politics with secularism. When we argue over whether the nation's founders meant to keep religion out of politics, the godless side is said to be liberal. But the role of religion in American politics has always been far less simplistic than today's debates would suggest. In this book, historian Amy Kittelstrom shows how religion and democracy have worked together as universal ideals in American culture and as guides to moral action and the social practice of treating one another as equals who deserve to be free. So, yeah, I'm definitely interested to read this, and I'll be especially interested to see what she has to say about Jane Addams and William James. I know Jane Addams was a practitioner of the social gospel, and she ran settlement houses, most famously Hull House, and I have another book by Jane Addams, it's on my shelf here somewhere, called Democracy and Social Ethics, that really blew me. I read this for comprehensive exams in graduate school, and it really blew me away when I read it how much Addams puts her money where her mouth is, right? And like, I think a lot of us hold certain ideals, but we don't necessarily always live up to them in practice. And I was just so blown away by how much Jane Addams lives up to her own stated ideals. And anyway, so I'm interested to see what else I will learn about her, and certainly also about William James from this book. And I'm also interested to see what Kittelstrom says about the other figures as well. So maybe I will get to that later this year, we hope. So those are the two that we're still in the 2021 purchases. So now moving on to books that I've bought new this year. So the first one I haven't even taken out of the shrink wrap yet. So this is Where the Jews Aren't, the sad and absurd story of Birobijdan. I'm not sure if I said that correctly. Birobijdan. I think that's right. Russia's Jewish Autonomous Region by Masha Gessen. So I read Masha Gessen's Surviving Autocracy last year, and I thought it was great, and then I looked up some of their backlisted titles, and this was one of them. And certainly, as you know, I am interested in Jewish history, so I obviously had to get this. So this says that Moscow-born Gessen addresses the story of the Jewish struggle for autonomy in Stalin's Russia in an out-of-the-way spot along the Chinese border. She explores the mindset of those who have lived through the time, including Simon Dubnow, the historian of East European Jewry, and the poet and author David Bergelson, known in Yiddish as David Bergelson, both of whom contribute to the cultural picture. Home was always elsewhere, and being Jewish meant being ostracized, beaten, and forgotten entrance to university, forbidden entrance to university. The story of Birobidzhan, writes Gessen, is absurd, etc., etc. So I'm actually going to take the shrink wrap off of this so that I can look at the actual structure of the book. But it's so nice with the hardcover and the, ooh, it has cool stuff inside too. Yes, love it when stuff has cool end papers. So it says in 1929, the Soviet government set aside a sparsely populated area in the Soviet Far East for settlement by Jews. The place was called Birobidzhan. The idea of an autonomous Jewish region was championed by Jewish communist Yiddishists, wow, that's a hard word, and intellectuals who envisioned a haven of post-oppression Jewish culture. By the mid-1930s, tens of thousands of Soviet Jews, as well as about 1,000 Jews from abroad, had moved there, but the state building ended quickly in the late 1930s with arrests and purges instigated by Stalin. So that's interesting. So here's the full end papers. So that's cool. Let me see what it looks like in the back, if there's anything else. I think it might be the same, but I'll show it to you anyway. So yes, like that, definitely excited to read this. Mainly I'm excited to read more by Masha Gessen because I quite like Surviving Autocracy and was definitely interested to read more of their work, and certainly work about Jews. So yes, we'll hopefully be getting to that one sooner rather than later. So this next book is going to be a buddy read with Mark Nash. This is called The Public Burning by Robert Coover. And basically all Mark had to tell me to get me to volunteer to buddy read this was that it's about Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. So in case you are unaware, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were two Jews who were executed by the U.S. government for treason and spying for the Soviets in 1953. And it came out later that Julius probably really was involved in espionage, but Ethel probably really didn't actually know about what all was going on, and she just typed a couple of things because her brother asked her to do so. So Ethel probably really was innocent of espionage, and yet both of them were sentenced to death. Anyway, so all I know is this has something to do with the Rosenbergs, and that's all I had to know, and I said, yes, I'm in. So it says, a controversial bestseller in 1977, The Public Burning has since emerged as one of the most influential novels of our time. The first major work of contemporary fiction ever to use living historical figures as characters, the novel reimagines the three fateful days in 1953 that culminated with the execution of alleged atomic spies Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. Vice President Richard Nixon, the voraciously ambitious bad boy of the Eisenhower regime, is the dominant narrator in an enormous cast that includes Betty Crocker, Joe McCarthy, the Marx Brothers, Walter Winchell, Uncle Sam, his adversary the Phantom, and Time magazine incarnated as the National Poet Laureate. Interesting. All of these and thousands more converge in Times Square for the carnivalesque auto-da-fe in which the Rosenbergs are put to death, and not a person present escapes implication in Cold War America's ruthless public burning. So yes, and this is on the lengthy side. I think Mark and I said we would read this in May, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, this is 534 pages, so I am sure that will take the whole month. But we'll be interested to read this, and hopefully it's better than Francine Prose's The Vixen, which I recently DNF'd, but more on that later in a different video. Okay, then I got another biography of my beloved Tallulah Bankhead. So if you've been following my channel, you may have noticed that I tend to read something about Tallulah Bankhead in the summertime, just because it's like light, fun summer reading. So in 2020, I read Tallulah's autobiography. Last year, in summertime, I read a biography of her, and I didn't like it, so I got another biography of her, hoping that I'm going to eventually find one that does justice to the infamous Miss Bankhead. So this is Tallulah, The Life and Times of a Leading Lady by Joel Lobenthal. And it's also on the heftier side. This is, yeah, over 500 pages. So outrageous, outspoken, and uninhibited, Tallulah Bankhead was an actress much known for her vices, cocaine, alcohol, hysterical tirades, and scandalous affairs with both men and women, as she was for her winning performances on stage. In 1917, 15-year-old Bankhead boldly left her established Alabama political family and fled to New York City to state her relentless need for attention and to become a star, etc., etc. So, yeah. So I'm excited to read this, which, again, I'll probably not get to until May, June, July, somewhere in there. Because, again, I like to read a little something about Tallulah Bankhead in summertime, just because it's fun. And Tallulah herself was a very outrageous and scandalous figure, and I also appreciate her bisexuality and just like over-the-top campness. I love that about her. So hopefully this biography will do her more justice than the not great David Brett biography that I read last summer. So, yeah. Okay. I also got another book by Olga Tokarczuk. So I've now read Drive Your Plow and The Books of Jacob. And there are 3 other novels of Olga Tokarczuk's, I believe, that have been translated into English, and one of them is Primeval and Other Times. Flights is another one, but I can get that from my library, but this I could not get from my library, which is why I bought it. So this is, I think it's short stories. I could be wrong about that, though. Let's see. This was translated from the Polish by Antonia Lloyd-Jones, by the way. Okay, maybe it's not. But it does look like it's sort of set up in like vignettes almost. So like I'm flipping through it and it says the time of Mrs. Papuga, the time of Isidore, the time of Cornspike, the time of the game, the time of Dolly, etc., etc. So I guess it's the times of a bunch of people. Does this have a blurb on it? Okay, so it says it's set in the mythical Polish village of Primeval, a microcosm of the world guarded by 4 archangels and populated by eccentric archetypal characters. The novel chronicles the lives of the inhabitants over the course of the feral 20th century in prose that is forceful, direct, and the stylistic cousin of the magical realism in Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. Okay, so that's interesting. And it seemed somewhat thematically similar to Drive Your Plow or The Bones of the Dead, which I quite enjoyed, so I'm kind of hoping for more, yeah, just like weird, eccentric characters and philosophical asides, and yeah, I'm just like, I'm really into Olga Tokarczuk right now, so more of that. Okay, I then bought an actual short story collection called Women, Hollering Creek, and Other Stories by Sandra Cisneros. Sandra Cisneros famously wrote The House on Mango Street, which is a great little novella. And yeah, and I just want to read more by her, and I've heard that this collection is quite good. So, so this is a story collection whose characters give voice to vibrant and varied life on both sides of the Mexican border, from a young girl revealing secrets only an 11-year-old can know, to a witch woman circling above the village on a pre-dawn flight. The women in these stories offer tales of pure discovery filled with moments of infinite and intimate wisdom. So it looks like this has quite a number of stories in it, actually. It's divided into 3 sections, so I assume the 3 sections are all connected to one of, like, the stories within each section are connected. So it's not super long. It's only 165 pages. So yeah, I would definitely also like to get to this year, hopefully sooner rather than later. Okay, I've got a few more here. Alright, this one is for my own genre fiction project that I'm doing this year. So most of the genre fiction books I've picked out, in fact, I think 9 of the 10 of them that I picked out I can get from the library, either physical form, ebook, or audiobook, but this one, which I picked out specifically for the horror genre, I could not, so I had to order it. So this is the Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker, and this actually was the basis for the movie, oh my gosh, it totally went out of my head. Hellraiser. It's the basis for the movie Hellraiser. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Anyway, so in case people are not familiar, I mean, I don't really know too much about what happens here, but I do know that people find like a magical little box thing, and it unleashes this whole world full of these creatures called Cenobites that are sort of dark and grotesque and addicted to like pain and desire and stuff. So it's not a super long book, and I've never actually seen the Hellraiser movie, so I might read this and then actually watch the Hellraiser movie, so we'll see how that goes. So I'm not sure when exactly I'll get to this, but certainly I will get to this year because it is for my own little genre fiction project. Okay, 2 more. One, so this one's by Louis Menand. This is called The Marketplace of Ideas, Reform and Resistance in the American University, and again, I kind of had to get something else by Louis Menand because I read The Free World last year, and it was my favorite nonfiction book of the year, and I was like, I need more Louis Menand in my life. So I got this. It sounds interesting. It's on the short side. In this book, Menand argues that although the demographics, mission, and scale of American higher education have all changed dramatically, its institutional structure and educational philosophy have remained nearly static for the last 100 years. And in this book, he uncovers the anachronisms and anomalies in 21st century higher education and separates what's worth preserving from what we might be better off without. So that sounds really good. Also relevant to me as someone who works in higher education. This was published in 2010, so it's obviously a little outdated at this point, but I'm guessing probably some of what he says is still going to be true because things change super slowly in higher ed, as I can attest to. Okay, and then last but not least, I got another book that I will be buddy reading, which is Another Country by James Baldwin. I will be buddy reading this in June, I think, with Mark Nash, Roz of Scally Dangling About the Books, and Sina from Beating Around the Books. And I'm definitely really excited to read something else by James Baldwin, who I love. And yeah, I don't really know anything about this, so I'm happy to not know anything about this. I know that Brian at Bookish really likes it, which makes me think I will also really like it. So I'm perfectly happy to not know anything else about this. And just save it to read in June. So yeah, it's definitely on the longer side. It does say on the blurb that it's set in Greenwich Village, Harlem, in France. It's a novel of passion, sexual, racial, political, artistic, that is stunning with its emotional intensity and haunting sensuality, depicting men and women, black and white, stripped of their masks of gender and race by love and hatred at their most elemental and sublime. Well, there you go. That's the perfect blurb to, like, tell me nothing about the book. But really, what other kind of words can you use for James Baldwin except a bunch of superlatives, really? So, okay, so those are all the books that I have to show you in this haul. I'm gonna try to hold up the big pile here to show you. Hang on, this is gonna take a second. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's heavy. Alright, so there's the big pile of books. Yeah, so if you have thoughts about any of these, would love to hear that. Please let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this. I hope everyone is staying healthy and well. I hope you're doing good reading whatever you're reading. And until next time, would it kill you to call your mother?